Hello everyone, welcome to the CG Cookie live stream. We are going to pick up today our project, the simplistic stylized Eevee environment. That's a tropical themed environment. And I'm going to try and get into it quickly so that I can make as much progress as possible because as Miranda's question suggested, I plan to do more in the last stream, but you can see that this is as far as I got. One measly palm tree in 2 hours, but I want to get a little bit more done while also not going too fast. I know some of you expressed you don't want me to go too fast and leave out important information, but I'm just going to let it ride. However much we get done, but my goal is to finish off these palm trees. These palm trees, there will become variations, but right now it's just the one. I want to polish off the material, especially first thing. Then I'd like to create more of a leafy bush slash small tree, and then also create the fern, which we will harvest from the branches of the palm tree. So that's my goal. Finish the palm tree, another leafy tree slash bush, and then a fern bush. So that we'll have 3. I think that's pretty low expectation, but I at least want to get that done. So yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. I don't see any. Okay, I actually see all green. All right, so it looks like sound, video, everything's good. I did implement the low latency, so we should be like 5-10 seconds. Yeah, okay, Jake, 5-second latency. Awesome. We're in business then. We can get to work. So when it comes to this palm tree, at the end of last week's stream, we really only painted the texture and applied it to a very basic material. So I want to polish off the final bits of the material so it looks better. I'm going to start with the branches. Let's turn on our overlays. And right now it's very solid in surface quality. It's consistently reflective across the whole branch. And I want to break that up with a little bit of a noise texture. So we have up to this point just painted by hand. But if you've watched any of my stuff, you know that I love procedural textures. They're really good for this kind of thing, just adding a finishing touch that's subtle yet effective. All right, so we're going to start by adding with a Shift-A hotkey texture noise texture. And then let me think about the texture coordinate. Let me use the UVs, because if I plug in the UVs and then tab into edit mode, on the branches, they're kind of oriented upward. All right, so I can use that and know that manipulating the noise texture in the Y direction or X direction is going to be valid, all right, because this island is straight up and down. So with the noise texture, I am going to manipulate the texture coordinates themselves. I will do that with a Shift-A vector mapping node. And if we look at the noise texture now with Shift Control clicking on it, note that I do have the node Wrangler tool enabled, and that's where that hotkey comes from. We can leave edit mode, by the way. So it's just a generic noise pattern. If you've used this before, you know what we're looking at. But I'm going to use this as a bump texture, which means black and white information is all that really matters. So I'm going to add a converter color ramp after the noise texture that will convert it to black and white data and also give me 2 flags with which I can control the contrast of our image. All right, so with the noise texture, I'm going to bump up the detail to 10. You can see that adds a much higher frequency of breakup in there. And then maybe the scale up to 10 as well. Yeah, let's try that for now. And if I plug that into, let's go ahead and plug it up as a bump map. With Shift-A vector, actually, bump. All right, this black and white information goes into the height, and then the bump goes directly into the normal. Shift Control click on the principled VSDF, and there's the default noise texture breakup. But we want to stretch it out in the direction of our branches, the leaves of the branches. And I can do that by scaling our mapping texture coordinates. If I switch to texture mode, that correlates to the x-axis being horizontal in the UV editor, y-axis being up and down. So I can scale, I think the x-axis, let's scale that. Okay, that's actually the opposite. Let's make that bigger then and make the value higher. You can see now that we are stretching the texture in the direction that the leaves on our branch grow, which is what I want. So that is going to add a nice little touch of detail over top. The strength is too high though. Let's go to like 0.2. Maybe that's actually probably pretty good. Maybe 0.3, just a little bit extra. Nice. And then I will rotate it slightly so that this pattern, follows more of the pattern of the leaf growth. So I can rotate, let's see, maybe is it the y-axis? No. I think Z maybe? Yeah, the Z-axis. Let's go down and you can start to see that stretching line up. Very nice. Excellent. So this will break up our reflections and give it that nice little surface polish detail. So very simple to add, and that looks pretty good. Let me make sure it's good on my other branches. Oh no, so if you remember from last week, both halves of the branch were opposite of each other, and you got the pattern kind of flipped. But on this branch, I corrected it, but I didn't copy those UVs everywhere else. So let me do that real quick, making sure that my good branch is selected first, B, box select the rest of my branches, and then B, deselect with middle mouse click the trunk and then the cluster above. Control L, transfer UV maps. And then Eevee kind of needs an update. So let me tab to edit mode and then back out, and that updates our Eevee viewport. And now the patterns are growing, they're like mirrored on each half. So that's what I want. A couple questions that I missed so far. From number 9, if I'm not mistaken, the factor output of the noise texture is also just a black and white information. Yeah, this has come up a couple times actually. So if I plug up the factor in here, it's kind of a bummer that Eevee wipes the texture clean first. It has to recompile. I think these are actually slightly different values, and I'm not sure why that is. But you can see it switch there. The color versus the factor is slightly different. So yeah, I don't know why, but either way will be fine. Like both will serve our purpose. But the added benefit of the color ramp, not only does it convert to black and white, that's kind of the secondary benefit. The primary benefit is that I get immediate manipulation of the contrast. That's the real benefit of the color ramp. All right, so that's the polish I wanted on the branches. Now let's see how it's applied to the rest of our tree. Because it's all sharing the same material right now, I think I will break apart the material, one for the trunk and the cluster up top, and then one for the branches themselves, because I want the branches to have a more reflectivity and the trunk to have far less. And I don't want to paint another texture just to control the amount of reflectivity. So what am I going to do? I'm going to actually combine the cluster with the trunk, Control J. Let's name this too. It's going to be Palm Tree A Trunk. Oh, I also need to rename my branches while I'm at it. I should have done that before I duplicated everything. Hindsight, it's 2020, am I right? Let me select those branches. How am I going to do this? Now I'm going to have to do it manually. I'll just select the first branch, rename it Palm Tree Branch .000. Select that whole thing and get ready for the most riveting stream activity you've ever seen. I'm going to copy and paste that name on all of our cylinder objects because those are my branches. I don't have that many, so it should only take, 45 seconds, let's say. But let me do that very quickly. It is a very good habit to name your scene properly, because especially in an environment scene like this, even on one asset, we already have a ton of individual objects. So it gets confusing pretty quick. All right, so those are all renamed. And by copying the .000 to every one, it automatically iterates the number up because Blender can't have two objects with the same name. So let's select, what was I doing again? Oh yeah, I was, for the trunk, I was gonna make a separate material. So the existing material, I need to add a suffix called branches, palm tree branches. And then I need to duplicate that material with the trunk selected. And this will be called trunk. Oh, I think I missed a question too. From Lofectirum. Hi, why don't we use normal noise? In the Eevee course given here, say that the Eevee won't display very well, but when rendering, it looks pixelated. Yes, it does have a pixelation problem within Eevee, but it's way worse for texture, like hand-painted texture maps. It looks, you can hide it better with procedural maps. It's not quite as bad. If I zoom way in, you can start to see that the pixelation becomes a problem. But at the end of this project, the kind of workaround that I use is you render your final scene twice as big as you want it, and then you scale it down. And since Eevee is so fast anyway, it doesn't take that much longer to render 2 times the resolution, and it takes care of any of that pixelation. The interpolation on scaling downward smooths all of that out. So while it is a problem, it's definitely a workaround. There is definitely a workaround, and you'll see that once we get there. But for the trunk, I'm going to be using our color texture as a bump input, and you'll see just how bad the pixelation gets. All right, so for the trunk, right away, I know that the specularity is way too high. I need it like really low, like 0.02, super low. And then roughness at 0.2, maybe take that up to like 0.4. I want there to be very little specularity on our tree trunk. And then yes, I think for the noise that we added that's been inherited from the branches, I'm going to use it, but I'm going to manipulate it to be a little bit differently. However, before I do that, let's just move these pieces down, disconnect it from the bump node. I'm going to first use the color information. So let's add another converter color ramp. Shift Control, click on that. And, oh, I'm using the alpha. That's not what I want. I want the color information. And then we can crunch those values. It's actually, oh well, I guess up top, it's a much darker color in general, so that's going to be, I'm not going to worry about that so much. You know, if this bump from the color map isn't ideal, the other procedural bump will pick up the slack. But namely, these ridges in the trunk is what I'm after. So let's plug that into the bump map, maybe switch to B-spline so it's a little less harsh. All right, let's see what that looks like when plugged up to the bump value. The strength is really low. Oh, also, I need to plug it into the height. Okay, now when we zoom in, you can see just how horribly pixelated the image texture is. The strength, though, maybe needs to be up to 1 since it's already a pretty subtle type of texture. But remember, I'm going to solve this in the end. First of all, we're never going to be really this close to the tree, so that's not going to be a problem. But also, we're going to render twice the resolution and scale back. Now, for the other noise component to the bump, let's look at that again. Really the only problem is the orientation of the texture. So let's just reset the mapping node. I'm going to select it, hit the N key to bring up our N panel, and then under item, we can choose reset node. Now this time, I think instead of UV, or can I use UV? Let me see, if I tab into edit mode, yeah, I should be able to scale it up and down. But I don't like that seam at all. That's really, really bad. And it's going to be there, actually. So let's not use UV as a texture coordinate. Let's use the, let's see, object perhaps. Make sure I'm not missing any other questions. Okay, from Tobles, could that palm be used in an RTS game as it would be, or wouldn't that need to be optimized? Yeah, you would want it to be optimized. I mean, as far as I know, most real-time strategies, I think that's what RTS means, you know, you're further away from the object. So yeah, the geometry could be less, the texture resolution could be less. Yeah, it could definitely be optimized a bit. Yeah, so, all right, that's what I was doing. I'm going to use the object texture coordinates this time. Okay, great. And then the scale of 10, let's try 3. And then I can scale in, is it Y? No. Z? I'm not rotate. I'm rotating right now. That's not what we want. Yeah, scale in Z is what I want. So we are compressing the pattern vertically. And that's when we're getting that kind of stripy pattern. But it is too small still. Let's try 0.5. Look at that. Man, now that I'm seeing this, I probably should have, I didn't even need to really hand paint this texture because this is the exact effect that I wanted. So let's plug that into the bump. I mean, do I really even want to bother with the color texture? Maybe I won't. Change of plan. Let's just get rid of that and use the procedural bump into the height. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's all we need. It's a little strong, so maybe take it down to 0.5. But yeah, I mean, look, I love that little tiny effect. I mean, once you zoom in, you can tell like it's not perfect. But remember, we're never going to be that close, and it's going to look great from this distance. So procedural textures for the win, definitely. 0.5, is that value good? Yeah, I think that's going to be fine. I can always adjust it later. So yeah, that's the polish that I wanted to put on the material of our palm tree. And let me zoom to the top of the chat. Excellent. No more. Haven't missed any questions. So now as far as variations, because when I create an asset like this, I do typically like to have a couple different versions, or at the very least that it looks unique from 3 different sides. Because when I duplicate this around our final scene, I talked about this in the first lesson, so I'll try not to beat this to death. But you know, I'm going to be rotating all the duplicates and orienting them differently. But with a straight palm tree like this, I think that's going to look more duplicated. So I want to create a separate variation that has a curve in the trunk itself. Also, you know, we can play with how big the branches are compared to the trunk, that kind of thing. So let me first, this is part of the default collection right now. Let me rename this to Palm Tree A. Because when we link in this data to our final scene, we're going to be linking the collection. So I'll link just Palm Tree A, and it will bring all this data with it nice and clean. So I'm going to select everything, duplicate it with Shift-D, move it off to the right, and then move this to another collection with the M key. Okay, maybe none of these are active. M, there we go. New collection, Palm Tree B. Excellent. All right, so with this, I can select all the objects, tab into edit mode, select the upper half, basically the branches, but also some of the trunk. And if we enable proportional editing with the O hotkey, you know, I can move this around and we get a nice bend into the trunk. I can rotate it even. We can twist it, like rotate in the Z direction. And yeah, this is a very, you know, different palm tree. Maybe make it a little bit taller too. Very nice. And then finally, what I think I'll do is deselect. I want to essentially like make the branches a little bit bigger by comparison to the trunk. So I'm going to Shift L on the trunk itself and get rid of those vertices as well as the cluster at the top. So now I've just got my branches selected. I need to put my cursor in here and into the middle of the cluster. So the good thing about moving your 3D cursor, snapping it to a certain position, is it's not remembered in the undo stack. So I can kind of remember this selection. Okay, just watch it. So I want to remember that selection, select the cluster with L, Shift S, cursor to selected. Now my cursor's in the middle, and then I can undo until I get back to, well, I thought I would get back to just the branch selection. Oh well. I don't know why that didn't work. I don't know. Forget that. All right, so with the cursor in the middle, I can switch to 3D cursor, and I should be able to scale these out a little bit. All right, just trying to vary up our palm trees a bit. Okay, cool. I'm gonna leave it at the 2 because I remember in my final image I just had the two variations. But I can always come back to this file and say and create a new version. It's very easy to do that. Make sure I didn't miss. There's been some chat activity. Okay, I haven't missed any questions. Excellent. All right, so I think that this kind of becomes the final file of this palm tree for now. It's no longer a work in progress, so to speak. But in order for so if I link this collection now for the second palm tree, there will always be this offset from the origin in the assembly file. So in order to save the final file, I want to move this back to the center. So with those selected, I'm just going to ballpark moving it right back to the center. Pretty close. All right, now I can save. I'm going to save a new work in progress version first, Palm Tree 06, and then Shift Control S. Go back up. Remember this file structure. So I'm in. This is my library directory. Within that, I've got character directory, props, texture folder. So I'm going into the props folder, then the palm tree folder, and I'm going to save the final file here, just as palm tree. Maybe palm trees, plural. There we go. All right, so that is my final palm tree file. It's ready for linking. We can move on to the next asset then. How long did that take? Only about 20 minutes. All right, I'm making decent pace. If I'm going too fast, let me know, but I think I'm doing okay. All right. Now for the next asset, it's gonna be pretty fun. I'm gonna create a new file. What? Oh, wait. Did I change? One file has unsaved changes. I could have sworn that I saved this like 2 seconds ago. All right, I'll save it again and then new general file. Delete everything in here. So the plant that we're going to create, let me open up the final. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go to my browser and we're going to look up. Where am I gonna? I'm just gonna Google some tropical tree species, because I don't know anything about tropical plants. I don't know what they're called other than a palm tree. So if you're like me and you don't know that kind of stuff, Google is your best friend. You can figure out the species and then focus in on that particular species to get all kinds of reference. So I just want a generic green leafy plant that belongs in a tropical climate. And so by typing this into Google, we get several different, types. I mean, there's tropical, there's a ton of different varieties. And I know from searching that I want an umbrella tree is what it's called. Something that is similar to an umbrella tree. And then a fern is going to be the type of bush that we're going to create. So if we type in umbrella tree, yeah, so this is what I'm after. What I like about this is that we could create two different versions: a small version, like a young tree, or a bigger version. And what's nice is, we get a variety from like really, really thick coverage of leaves, and that's going to be great for filling all the space in the forest. Or we can get a small version that looks really nice in front of camera. So yeah, I'm going to create this umbrella tree right now. And press 1 in the chat if you've ever used the Sapling tree generator that's built into Blender. I want to see if you guys have used that, because I've been using it a lot lately and I love it. And that's how we're going to create this tree. Miranda's comment doesn't show up. 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 Miranda's comment doesn't sho Excellent. So we've got a few people at least that have used it. Two. No, that must mean never used it. Well, the sapling tree generator. It comes with Blender. If you go to your preferences, it's an add-on. And make sure that that is enabled. Just type sapling right here. This is one of the coolest add-ons for trees. It is so fully featured. I mean, you can spend forever creating unique variations of trees. It is so good. We're only going to be scratching the surface, but you'll see how powerful it is to create trees. So I've got that enabled. But before I begin creating the actual tree, is it free? Yes, it's free. It comes with Blender. It's in default 2.8. Just you have to turn it on. It's amazing. It's incredible. I've used Sapling Tree Generator, but it really bums me out that in 2.8 you can't change parameters once you've clicked off of the tree. Okay, yeah, I don't remember using Sapling too much in 2.7x before 2.8, but that is kind of an annoyance. Is you guys will see once you get there, but you're stuck in the modal, or else you lose all the work. So you'll see what that's about. My comment was that you could go even faster. I could? I feel like I'm going super fast, but I could try to do faster. Okay, it wasn't showing up for some reason. Right, so before I actually begin using the sapling tree generator, I want to create my leaves, because that is one slightly lacking part of the sapling tree generator. Is there's not nearly as many options for the leaf geometry itself. Has great options for how to distribute them among the tree branches, but not how to create them, with parametrically, I guess. So we're going to create them manually. One set, basically a leaf cluster that will then be duplicated around. Because if we look at my reference one more time, you can see that the type of leaf is pretty distinct. All right, here's a good example. So it's several simple oval shapes with a stem that connect in the center. I'm going to create that kind of thing right now. Let's start with Shift-A, Mesh, Circle. And I'm going to try and keep this low poly. Remember, we're going to be duplicating this a ton using with the sapling add-on, but that means I need to keep my geometry low, or else it'll get out of hand very quickly and really bog down the scene. So I'm going to start with 8 vertices. Perfect. And then I'm going to fill this object. Let's just move it up in edit mode off of the grid floor. I'm going to fill down the center with F, and then Control R, cut in the middle. Then I can select everything and F to fill. Make sure that that's 4 individual faces. Yeah, perfect. All right, now I can scale in the X-axis to make that oval shape. And then I'm going to I to inset another layer of geometry. Yeah, it's worth getting hyped for. It's pretty great. So let's, okay, now that I've got that extra geometry, that's going to allow me to create this kind of book shape, right? So in the center, it's going to have like a crevice, and then the leaves are going to kind of round out like that. You'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to turn on proportional editing and then push this down. Make sure that I'm using the sharp fall off. All right, give it a little bit of curvature. And then I'm going to pull the center line down. Let's look in the side view. Turn off proportional editing. Just move that straight down. Give it a nice arc. Probably should have inset this a little bit more. I'm not worrying about perfect symmetry here. I do want it to be a little imperfect. So that's why you see me not using a mirror modifier. Imperfection is going to be an asset here. And then bring down the outer edges. There we go. And this is going to be, if I really wanted to smooth this, I could, because we're using quad geometry. And if I hit, well, first shade smooth, right click and shade smooth, and then Control 2, we do get it will smooth out fine. If for some reason we want this asset to be right in front of camera and the low poly nature is bothering us, we could smooth this if we wanted. But I'm planning to leave it low poly. So Control 0. Oh, I don't have my screencast keys on. That's a classic Kent move to turn this on late. There we go. Although, let's put it over here so I don't get in the way of this. Excellent. So that's pretty much it for the leaf other than the stem. I'm going to hit the K key to cut an edge here. And then I'm fine with it being a triangle. It's not a big deal. We'll live on the wild side. All right, so then that creates an opportunity for me to extrude a stem. I'm being very free-handed with this. Again, for the sake of imperfection, that's going to be fine. And then I need to push that a little bit forward like this. Excellent. All right, so now I've got a basic leaf. I can select everything, Shift D to duplicate it. Not quite yet. I jumped the gun a little bit. I want to place this at the center. I want the stem, the base of the stem, to be at the center of our origin. So I will move that an eyeball so that it aligns right there. Now I can use the 3D cursor, Shift D to duplicate, and then RZ, and then kind of alter how this is rotated. I don't want the leaves to intersect. There we go. Scale it down just a little more. Shift D, duplicate again. I'm just going to do a 5 leaf pattern. Maybe this time I'll rotate the leaf the other way. There we go. And then the same thing on the other side. Shift D, duplicate, rotate. Shift D one more time for the 5th leaf. There we go. A nice set of random, sort of random leaf pattern. At least it's a unique pattern. Thinking of it, it's asymmetrical. That's the word. Excellent. This will be good for duplicating now into our tree generator. But first, let's go ahead and add a material just so that we can see the green of the leaves once we start working with it. Add a new material, call it umbrella tree leaf. Umbrella tree leaf. And we'll just change the base color to be green. Make sure it looks like that in dev mode. Turn down the specularity, also the roughness. There we go. All right, just a basic shader. We will come back to that and make it nicer. But now's the fun part where we get to deal with the sapling tree generator. We get to enjoy the efficiency of it. All right, so only question mark at this point is, are my leaves too big? We probably will have to adjust this. I'm going to make them smaller just to be on the safe side. Control A and apply the scale. But I will probably have to come back and address that later. The sapling tree generator lives in Shift A curve, rather, not in the mesh. It's a curve at the very bottom, sapling tree gen. Let's click on that, and right away we get a tree. Very believable tree structure. And if I open up the options, we open up a wild world of parameters that I will cover the basics, but you could, again, you can customize the mess out of these trees. Question: can we trust 100% that when we are in shading look dev, it will look exactly like that in cycles, or does it change a bit? It depends on the situation. I have seen Eevee look dev be very, very similar to cycles. I've also seen it be very different. I think that volumetrics is probably pretty different. If you use volumetrics in scenes, what else? Sometimes reflectivity can be different as well. So no, you can't trust 100%. I'll be honest though, I have not created a cycle scene for the past like 2 months or so, I would say. I've been in Eevee world lately with the freelance project from where this environment idea came from. So yeah, I need to get back into cycles and like really troubleshoot what's similar and what's not. But for like 75-80% of the shading, I love Eevee for it. But once I get to cycles, I think we need to expect a bit of difference, and we need to treat it uniquely. So back to the sapling tree gen. The key thing here, which is what I forgot who asked, but someone brought it up. If you click on any of these settings, we can start changing. Branch distribution, we can, there's just a ton of settings. But as soon as you click anywhere else, if you click on the tree itself, it accepts that operation and you cannot tweak it anymore. So whenever we're using this, at least for now, and that's what someone was kind of complaining about, that it is quirky that you have to stay in that modal, in that window, and not click anywhere else. You can orbit and stuff, but you cannot click, left click on anything. So let's delete that, Shift A, sapling tree gen. And let me see, trying to go over the basics here. First of all, you have, if you think this is a lot of settings, you have several different menus or modes, like focuses, contexts of the settings. Maybe that's a better word for it. Geometry is kind of the generic settings. You also have branch radius with its own set of parameters. You've got branch splitting with a ton of settings. You've got branch growth. You've got leaves themselves, which let's go ahead and turn those on. Why not? We have the leaves there. So I'll turn on show leaves. And for the leaf shape, we want to use dupliverts. And then it's kind of smart enough to go ahead and pick the leaf, which I forgot to rename. It's just circle. But now we've duplicated those leaves and they are still too big. So we have a couple options for how to deal with that. We can scale the tree size up, but not scale the leaves. Unfortunately, the leaf scale seems to be broken. It doesn't... Wait, what? I've used this so many times and never seen it adjust. But you guys saw it flicker just there. I swear the leaves got bigger for a split second. Anyway, in my experience, this is broken in 2.8. Wait, yeah, what's that? If you go to 0... Oh, you can't scale to 0. So it wasn't working. You just can't scale to 0. Anyway, so this leaf scale is not reliable, but if you go to geometry and scale the tree, the overall tree gets bigger, but the leaves stay the same size. So that's kind of an inverse way of scaling down the leaves. So anyway, there's a ton of settings. You can get lost in here, and just mind the fact that you have several different contexts for settings. Let's see, a couple questions. I missed number 9. I've never fully understood what the specular value determines, not with PBRs at least. So specular is non-metallic reflection. So if you think of like a plastic ball, that is specular reflection. It's also in cycles before PBR, it was like the glossy node, whereas metallic reflections are a certain type of reflection. Namely, like the big difference that I'm aware of is that metallic reflections color the incoming reflection. Like if it's a red metal, then it will be red reflections. But if you have a red ball that has specular reflections, they won't be colored red. That's kind of the way I kind of see the big difference. But a couple other questions. Are there different tree shapes? Yes. Did 2.8 come with a totally new add-on that's worth checking out? No, Sapling has been around a long time. I just haven't really had a need to use it until this project recently. So, whoops, I left mouse. Oh, I thought I accidentally clicked off of it. I just minimized the menu. So as far as presets, you do have presets. That's probably one of the first places you'll want to go. If we choose, these are a few of my own, but like a Douglas fir, I don't think any of the presets come with leaves, so that's kind of left out, which is good because it shows us the core structure. We also have a calisternin, which I've never actually heard of before. So yeah, you would definitely want to play with the presets. Quirky enough, what did I just click? Yeah, the quacking aspen doesn't come with a bevel, so you can enable that to get the branch thickness. Let's see, but Japanese maple, that's actually pretty close to where we want to go, and that's what I'm going to do. The most simplistic way to go about it is not to start from scratch, but modify one of the existing presets. I think small maple is pretty good too. So yeah, we've got presets. I think I'll just start. Okay, so I'll go over the basic settings, as we go on, rather than describe them all first and then start to create the tree. Let's just start to create the tree and see how far we get. All right. Right away, I don't think actually on second look. Well, I like this too. Let me go back to my reference because that will help me figure out what kind of structure do I need. This is essentially the size that I want. I think this is a 3D model. Yeah, it is a 3D model. Let's find an actual tree. So that's a big version. You can kind of see how it's very like what's the word for it? Gnarly type branches. But the smaller versions, yeah, like this one. This is sort of what I'm after. Maybe a little bigger than that. Okay, it looks like we have a central trunk and then a bunch of small branches coming off of it. So I don't need to be perfect. We're not creating a photoreal type of tree, but just generic shape is what I'm like pinning in my head right now. Now if we go back to Blender, the problem with this is that we've got 3 different branches. So if I want to change that, we can go to branch splitting, and the base splits, I just want to be 0. All right, so now I've got one split going up, like one trunk. It does split up here at the top, which I think that's okay, but one main branch. And then I probably need to increase the branch length. I don't know. Now I'm actually thinking I should probably stick with the other maple, the small maple. No, not the small maple. What was the other? The Japanese maple. Yeah, this is much closer to that type of tree. I'll just start with this. Whatever. Let's keep it simple. Let's go ahead and add the leaves. We want it to be dupliverts. And okay, it's already picking the right object. So yeah, we can get an idea of what this, we're already pretty close. Like this is in the ballpark already. But we can adjust a ton of settings. Right now there's a lot of empty space in the leaves, whereas if we go back to this, we don't see quite as much empty space. It's a pretty consistent consistent coverage of leaves. So these smaller, or like these mid-sized trees, I do want to get more coverage in general. So the way to do that with sapling is it very realistically grows leaves only from branches. Like it doesn't grow leaves in the middle of nowhere. So it means if we want more leaves, more leaf coverage, we need to have more branches. So I think I need to get into splitting, like the split settings, branch splitting. And honestly, there's so many here that I'm gonna have to start playing with them. So with like split, let's see, trunk height. What if we lower that 0.2? So you can see that brings the leaves generally lower on the tree. Like the leaves cover more of the tree trunk length. So maybe 0.3. And what about, I can probably make the tree limbs sag a bit more. If I go to growth, I know that's in the growth, under curvature. Yeah, more like this. I wonder if I can turn on ambient occlusion and not lose the sapling. All right, so if you need to do something else and you want to maintain your tree, you can export presets. So if we go to geometry, I will call this at the bottom, you can call it, let's see, whip umbrella tree 01, export the preset. All right, and it will remember that so that if I can turn on ambient occlusion, which it looks like it's letting me do anyway. Okay, good. There we go. Now we get a little bit more indication of like where the leaves are and how close they're touching. It looks like we have way too many leaves all clustered together. No, number 9. Did I miss something? No. All right. How about the twisting branches? Yes. Yeah, we're gonna address a lot of this. So I know that my leaves are too centrally clustered. Oh, look at that. So it turned off ambient occlusion. Did you notice that? So if I turn on ambient occlusion and then change a setting, it turns ambient occlusion off. So I guess whatever state Blender is in while the modal is active, it will revert to that any setting that you change. So that's okay. We saved our preset. Let's just get rid of what we created, turn on ambient occlusion, and then add that that sapling tree gen, go to the geometry option and load that whip umbrella tree. And we need to enable our leaves again. I guess the preset doesn't save the leaf setting. Yeah, I need to get more leaf coverage inside. Need to figure out how. Leaves -5. That's kind of bizarre. What does the negative direction do? That's really interesting. Actually, yeah, so maybe the negative direction, I wonder if that puts more leaves on the ends of the branch, because if we start to take that in the positive direction, we get more leaves going back into the plant. Okay, great. So it looks like I didn't actually know that before starting. So yeah, I think that's a better result. Maybe leaves at 10 is too many. What if we go to like 5? That's looking like decent coverage. Or is it? I wonder. You have to bear with me that even though I've used this a lot lately, every single time it's so detail oriented that I can't just like zoom through here and press all the buttons. I don't know the exact values for everything, but it's really fun. Trust me, if you use this, it's a lot of fun to dial these settings in exactly how you want. So with the branch growth, maybe I overshot the curvature a little too much. Yeah, I think I like that. And then what if we go to the branch splitting and we can try increasing the number of splits. So in your segment splits, first of all, you have, I guess, your branch number, your general branch number at 50. If we go down to like 10, a lot less branches, a lot fewer branches. If we go to 100, a lot more branches. And that actually is starting to look pretty close. Yeah, so I mean, I could probably save this preset out. Let me go ahead and do that and save it as like my final, and then we'll continue tweaking some of these settings just for the sake of demonstration. Geometry, I'm going to save this as whip number 2. Export the preset. Back to branch splitting. Yeah, so we went over how many branches, and then so each branch has its own segments, and you can increase the number of segments there. Let's go to like 0.5, and yikes, it gets pretty crazy pretty quick. But yeah, like that's much higher coverage, but too many in my opinion for what I want. I think I was at 0.25. And then each setting going down, I think, is dependent on how many levels you have. So I've got 2 levels. If we go down to 1, you can see what that looks like. Actually doesn't look bad either. I actually like that. That could be my small version, and then this could be my big version. That's pretty cool. But I wanted to go over a few more, try to overview more of the settings. But yeah, if I have multiple levels, like 3 levels, good gracious. So I guess that's a couple different ways to get different coverage. You can increase the levels, or you can change the branch count. And it can get kind of crazy. Let's see what else. But yeah, so the whole point was saying that these segments, all these other sliders, I think control like the 3rd level and the 4th level. Can you choose different shapes of leaves on the trees? That's why I modeled my leaf first, because what you get by default with the leaves is either a hexagonal shape where you can adjust like the scale. So like I can make it thinner. Oh gosh. Right. So like they can be more round, or they can be, skinnier, 0.5, or I'm going to switch that back to the default, which is 1, or you can choose a rectangular plane. So this is good for like alpha mapped textures. If you have like a texture of a leaf, but you want to use super simple geometry, this is going to be your best bet. Those are your only 2 options, unless you use duplifaces or dupliverts like we did, and it uses whatever geometry is selected. And since this is the only other object in the scene, I guess it grabbed that automatically. Yes. Anything else? Let's see. Okay, I don't think so. Awesome. Okay, so were there other settings that I wanted to go over? We talked about branch splitting, your split angle, which is where you can kind of control. It's getting pretty heavy with all these leaves. Maybe I can turn off leaves for now. And I mean, I could spend an hour going through all these settings. I won't spend too much longer. Branch splitting, but really the best thing to do is going to be getting in here and playing with it yourself. Yeah, you can see what the levels does. Adds another level and then another level. Uh-oh. Maybe I shouldn't have gone up to level 4. But yeah, it gets really, really detailed very quickly. So if we go back to level 2, the split angle, you can see what that does. Makes it broader, makes it skinnier. And then each separate level has a similar setting. All right, so that's what like one split angle, but 4 different options, that's what it does. And then split angle variations, just like I think like a random sort of control over that to give it a variety, make it not so similar. And then your growth, let's see, your length, you can change the length of your branches. All right, so it maintains the same thickness of the branch, the same diameter, but it lengthens, obviously. Length variation, pretty self-explanatory. Downward angle, what does this do? All right, I'm not seeing anything for that first one. The second one, it's pretty similar actually to the branch split. Okay. And then you've seen curvature. That's actually really nice for, curving them upward or curving them downward based on like gravity if the leaves are pretty heavy. Yeah, I mean, I might wrap it up because like you really just need to get in here and play with it. There's so much to play with in here. Really, really amazing add-on. I can't believe that it's free and included with Blender. Just amazing. All right, now let's actually create the trees specifically based on that preset. I won't bore you anymore with all these settings, but they're good. They're good. Geometry, let's go to load that whip umbrella tree 02. And then the leaves, turn those on. Yeah, I think this is going to work really nice for this tree. But this is going to be the bigger version. So maybe I can lengthen. What should I do here? I think I want to lengthen the leaves or the branches slightly. So branch growth, let's lengthen them just a bit. Maybe increase the number of leaves, possibly? Okay, I think by adding another level. Isn't that what we did? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Plenty of branches there. So go back to leaves and maybe decrease the number. Let's go to like 3. Basically, the lowest number I can afford and still have plenty of coverage. Keep an eye. Remember, we don't want this to be super heavy. So if we look down here at the bottom, we've got 500,000 triangles. It's kind of heavy right now. So maybe go down to like 1 leaf. Man, we still have plenty of coverage. Also, the geometry, the actual geometry of the trunk and branches themselves, we can optimize that a little bit. If we go to branch, let's go to geometry first. So the curve resolution, if I go to wireframe, ooh, that's kind of hard to see, isn't it? Keep an eye on the trunk itself. And as we go down, it gets simpler and simpler. That's going to save on geometry. We can go way down because if most of the branches are going to be hidden within the leaves, they don't need to be very high poly. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think, well, I want to try, remember I said from the image that there's one central trunk. So what if I try and go to my branch splitting and take the base splits down? Oh, look at that. That's funny. Secondary, what is it? Secondary base size. Secondary split. Oh no, that's going to crash it, isn't it? Not 1, not 1. I'm at 0.1. How many verts can a game model have in order to be used in a video game? That is, it's relative to the asset, for example, while I wait for Blender to hopefully not crash. That was such a stupid move. But like if you have a main character in a video game like God of War, the one that came out recently, and the camera is frequently up on the character, very close up, that's going to have a lot more geometry. But if you have this tree that's way off in the distance that you never get that close to, that's going to be a lot lower. So there is no answer to like each model can only have 1,000 verts or something. Like that's you can't have that. You can only know that information once you get into the game development and figure out like how to divvy up your resources basically. Yeah, the save, but luckily I saved a preset, so we're okay. Even if we have to close Blender and reopen it, we have a preset. Oh, but I didn't save the leaves. That's all right. I can grab those from a... No, I can't. I'm going to have to remodel those if I don't... Come on, Blender. Do me a solid. Autosave. There you go. Oh, but does autosave work on a non-saved file? Yikes. I'm going to give it 30 more seconds. Let's see if there's any other questions to answer. Do you think this add-on is going to replace sculpting for modeling custom trees by hand? No, I don't think so. In the project, oh, there we go. Look at that. It's just it's only almost 5 million tries. No big deal. That was a costly mistake. 0.1 is what I wanted. So I'm trying to figure out why the tree splits in the middle there. Base splits. I know I've come across this setting before. Is it this one? 0.1. Base splits 0. Split height. Whoa, that seemed to... Let's hide the leaves for a moment. Okay, so the split is still there. I think I got carried away. I liked it better before I tried to get rid of it. I'm fine with the three trunks basically. So let me go back to geometry, load preset. This one. you can see why presets are important. Sometimes you can't it's very likely to get lost in the settings, and then kind of you're so far down that road you can't really go back without a preset. But I remember I wanted another level on this. I wanted to simplify the geometry. All right, I'm gonna commit to this one. Geometry, resolution of 1, and then I want a split, branch splitting, level 3. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. What I like about this is there's tons of coverage, so I can put those inside the forest, inside the jungle, and fill up a lot of space. But split height, maybe I'll change that. Nope, that's not what I wanted. It's the trunk height. I want to make that a little bit higher, so we see more of the trunk at the bottom. And then for my leaves, let's go down to 1 leaf. Yeah, there's still so much coverage. Where's my face count at? 149,000 quads, and then almost 300,000 triangles. I mean, it's handling it pretty well. What if I switch? You can also change leaf distribution. This is another big thing that I like to play around with. The default is inverse canonical. You can go to, let's try spherical. That didn't change anything, did it? Cylindrical. That didn't change anything. Oh, is it because I need to have multiple leaves? Yeah. I guess with 1 leaf, you just get 1 type of distribution. And I guess that means there's only 1 leaf per branch. Yikes. All right, that's going to be fine. I'm going to risk it. Maybe I won't use this too often, but I will keep it because I like it. All right, so we've got this. I've clicked off of the tree gen. We've committed to this. Now, so that you know, the dupliverts, the way that it works is like, I think these are parented. You don't want to click on edit mode. If I tab into edit mode, all the leaves go back. You want to undo that. And how does it exist? If I go to the object menu, instancing, yeah. Is it parented? That's how it is. That's how it works. Under tree, it creates this leaves object, and this leaves object is the dupliverts. But like one thing that I feel like is lacking with the sapling tree gen is I don't know of a way to like vary the size of the leaves, make some smaller than others. So if I want to do that now, what I can do is hit the spacebar key and type the word real. Look for the make instances real. And when I do that, each of these dupliverts becomes an individual object that can share object data, but also has its own origin point right at the end of the stems. All right, so I can select all of these, deselect the trunk object, Control L, they share object data, and then using individual origins, you can scale all of them according to their origin point. Or to scale only certain ones, you can hit the spacebar key and search for random, choose the select random option, and instead of select as your action, let's change it to deselect. So we can set 50% deselect on the selected objects, and now only 50% of them I'm scaling. All right, so that's how you can vary up the size manually. Anyway, we have I am not going to bother renaming that. That was kind of a silly mistake. But I want to move on and talk about like how to vary up our material, because we don't want the exact same green all over the leaves. Info, next to load preset, there is a limit import that is checked by default. Oh, it doesn't import leaves and limits the branches. Oh, that's good to know. That's really good to know. What you're talking about is in geometry, limit import. Limit imported tree to 2 levels and no leaves for speed. Oh, that's nice, actually. Yeah, that makes sense. Save, save, save. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Save as. All right, this is a new asset. So in the props directory, create a new folder, umbrella trees. And then for version, I'm going to create another folder, call it VER for version. And then in here, it's going to be version number 1. Umbrella trees 01. What time is it? Okay, I mean, we did a decent amount in an hour, I guess. Trees 01, perfect. Thank you, Save Police. I need that. All right, so we're talking about varying up the material. If I select any of these leaves, they're all going to be sharing that exact same leaf material we already created. I'm going to switch over to the shading workspace. I don't need textures right now, nor do I need UV editor. Actually, since this is a tall tree, I'll leave it. I was going to say if it's a tall tree, I might as well, put a window down here in a skinny viewport, but we'll just leave it as default. Yeah, so the big thing that I want to do is add a random coloration on the leaves, and we can do that with Shift-A input, object info, and there's a very convenient little socket called random. If you right Shift Control click on that and cycle through the inputs, you'll see that it assigns a random value from black to white on the leaves, the leaf objects, because they're separate objects, but they're all sharing the same material. And so we can plug this into a converter color ramp and then copy that green, paste it to both flags, make one of them dark, maybe towards the blue direction as well. And we can even add another flag in here. Change that top one to more of a yellow color. And yeah, we can have a lot of freedom with what these colors end up like. So that is going to be handy. We'll plug that into the base color. Very cool. How's the reflection looking? I think that looks okay. Maybe switch to a different HDRI environment. That's more of a sunset, sunrise. The leaf scale option does work when using duplicate faces, but for some reason just tested it. Interesting. Object transform, randomized transformations, very handy. Oh, I didn't know about that. Nice. So I think that would probably, yeah, let's try that. I could also just select this object, Shift L, linked, select by material. And then you were talking about randomized transform. Interesting. So I want to keep location, but rotation. That is pretty cool. So you can see that I'm randomizing everything. That's pretty cool. I've never used that actually. Thanks for the tip, Spiky. That is pretty neat. The one thing about the tree gen is that it does a pretty good job of like orienting your leaves, your custom leaves, pretty well. So yeah, I won't worry about randomly rotating them right now, but yeah, that's going to be a very handy tool. Yeah, so we've randomized the leaf color. Maybe switch to another. I think the leaf color is okay for now. Once we get it in the context of the final scene, obviously we can change that. Always looks good with some ambient occlusion to distinguish a little more distance and contact shadows between the leaves. Now for the trunk, I'm going to also create a... Oh, I wonder... I was trying to think, could we... Because if we look at this object by itself, there is a lot of geometry, most of which will never be seen, especially these outskirt branches, right? So I'm kind of wondering if to save geometry, maybe I'll add this as like a possibility in the future. If I start building my scene and it's too heavy, what I could do is go into edit mode, circle select the outside edges or the outside verts. Control L, and then delete a lot of those. How much does that go down? We're at 5,000. All right, we're at like 30,000 verts. Okay, so we saved, what, 5,000 verts right there? Anyway, that's an option. And then if we bring back our leaves, you're never going to really tell that those are gone. So that's an option for optimizing slightly. I mean, we only saved like, what did I say, 5,000 verts, but it's an option. We can maybe go a little harder on that in the future if needed. Kind of talking just about whatever's on my on my mind. Right, so we want to create a material for the tree trunk. New material with that selected. And this is called umbrella tree. Umbrella tree. Oh, you know what? Wonder if I should bust out a tiny bit of Python to rename all of the leaf objects. Umbrella tree. I'm going to call this umbrella tree A trunk. Because I do want to create another umbrella tree. A smaller one. And right, so I need to make it a color like a kind of a darkish gray brown. I guess we should look at reference 2 to make sure that's the right direction. Yeah, it looks like, I mean, just a standard brownish mid-level gray. Looks a little darker there. Yeah, that'll be fine. You know, not photoreal. We're just going for something close, ballparking it. All right, so you can probably guess that I'm going to be using. Wait, what is this? Did we separate the tree somehow? I don't know where this came from. What do you guys think? If I delete this chunk, which I don't remember where it came from because it's not lining up. It's not lining up with the rest of the tree. I mean, can I just delete that and we're fine? Because that saves... Holy cow, look at this. If I delete that, we go down from 280,000 to 53,000 tries. What is this? Oh well, I'm just going to delete it, call it a happy accident, and we have a much more optimized scene. And yeah, if you guys think it looks fine, I think it looks fine. So we'll roll with it. I mean, there's a little bit of a gap. You can see leaves just sort of hanging off in the middle of nowhere, but I don't think you'll notice that in the final context. Ghost tree, seriously, that was bizarre. I mean, I don't remember separating them at any point. I think I'm just going to roll with it. Let it be. The trunk material. Let me focus. The trunk material. You can probably guess I'm going to be using procedural materials. I don't want to bother with converting this to a poly mesh and then unwrapping or any of that nonsense. We're not going to see much of it, so we just need to approximate it. Let's add. I usually will start with like a noise texture. See what that looks like by itself. It's too small of a pattern. Also, I'll probably go to a black and white version. Adjust the contrast. So go ahead and add a color ramp. And let's see. I also want to add, I'm going to select this node, the noise texture, Control T, and that's going to bring, with the node Wrangler, it adds the functionality of auto creating a texture coordinate node and a mapping node for us, which is very convenient. And I'm going to try using the UV coordinates because these are curves. If I tab into edit mode, these are curves, like Bezier curves that you can edit as much as you want, but it has built-in UVs. And so by default, you know, we get these stripe patterns running up the direction of the branches. And I like that sort of breakup. Likewise, I can, or like as a complement to that, I want to say that I saw this in my reference. Let me see if I can find that again. I can't find the tree. But basically this sort of horizontal pattern right here, I'm going to also create that. But the tree that I was using earlier, I haven't seen. Oh, maybe it was this one. Maybe it was this one. But yeah, this horizontal pattern, I'm just going to add an effect that kind of emulates that. We've got one going vertically and then another that will be horizontal. And all I need to do there is I can use just the regular UVs up here. Yeah, perfect. And then for this one, I'm going to scale. Let me find the right scale value. Oh, it looks like X is going to be fine. So if I scale way down in X, like 0.4, maybe even like 0.02, there's my pattern. And I can increase I want to increase the scale of the texture, which you actually do by making it smaller, the value smaller. Excellent. Now these two should, kind of team up and give me some sort of pattern that I like. All right, so duplicating that color ramp to give me that extra control. And now if I mix it, maybe I can favor one over the other. Maybe change the option to, or the method to, I like overlay. I'm a big overlay fan. There we go. I don't need to beat this to death. It just needs to be something. Now, once I've got a black and white, whoops. Once I've got a black and white factor, I can plug that into color mix RGB and select a darker and lighter version of my original taupe color. Let's go dark and then there we go. Just a little bit of different detail. Plug that into our base color. Not looking too bad. The same situation, the default principled specularity is way too high, so let's go 0.02 maybe. Maybe 0.2. And then we'll also use, let's see, I'll leave the roughness at 0.5. We'll also use this value as a bump. See what it looks like by itself. Vector, bump into the height and then into the normal. Let the magic work. Yeah, way too strong. Yikes. Let's turn that down to like 0.1, 0.2. And I actually think in this case, I want to favor, which one do I want to favor? Yeah, I don't think I like that. Let's go higher, like 0.9. Maybe switch the inputs. There we go. I think that's going to be fine. Again, you're really not gonna see it. All right, and that's gonna be one version. So let me. Yikes! I need to group this accordingly. Shift G. I'll just select everything. I'm going to select everything except the original leaf cluster because that doesn't need to be part of the group. It doesn't need to be linked in. It's just a utility object basically. Let's move to a new collection, or just move it to the existing collection and then rename that to tree, what do we call this? Umbrella tree A. There we go. That's fairly clean. This leaf object which will just be left out of all the collections. I'll leave it in the file, but then when I link in, it won't come with anything. Awesome. I'll save this file. Then let's hide. I'm just going to move it off to the side, actually, instead of hide it. Let's just select everything in the collection, move it off to the side. And now when I create my next one, remember, I think I just turned the levels down on the preset, and I really liked how it turned out. So go to geometry. Wait, okay, yeah, kind of grayed out there for a second. Whip tree, umbrella tree number 2. All right, and then I'll turn down our levels under branch splitting, I believe. Need to make this taller. Branch split. Levels go down to 1. And then add our leaves. I think we're waiting. Oh yeah, so now in the object, no, I still want circle, right? What's going on here? What is this called? This is called leaves now. Oh, okay. Sorry, I confused myself. It wasn't like selecting the leaves. Let's get rid of all these objects. We don't need those. Try that again. Shift A, curve, sapling tree gen. And go back to presets. Turn down the levels on branch splitting. Enable leaves. All right, so I think the reason it's waiting for so long is it's populating a massive list. Oh, look at that. I think it maxed out. Nuts. What am I going to do about that? Spiky, you've used this, right? Have you run into this problem? Like, it's like I cannot select my leaves group. Maybe if I put an A at the beginning of the object so that it appears at the beginning of the list. Oh, wait. Yeah, there it is. Why is it not duplicating? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to come back to this. Yeah, we've got 40 minutes. I want to create that fern. I'll have to come back and figure out what's going on here because it's not using... It's just not populating the leaves for some reason. Okay, that's fine. I surrender. We'll come back to this. I will save this file. Hopefully you get the idea of how you can create these kind of leafy plants. And still, keep them stylized. I'm not going for realism, even though structurally it is more realistic. I'm going to save this and then... All right, so we want to create ferns. That's the other type of asset I want to create today. And we are going to harvest the branches from our palm tree and just alter the texture so that it fits with that fern. So let's go grab that palm tree branch. Let's open a recent palm tree file. Okay. You guys still with me? Hope I'm not boring you guys, but we'll finish up with this fern and then call it a day. Awesome. Let's see. So I'm going to select, remember I had 3 different versions, and I want to select those various versions now. I think those, and then this one maybe hunched over. All right. I'm going to just Control-C, copy that, and then File, New, General. Discard any changes. Control-V. Where are those at? All right. And we are going to create our fern from this because, structurally, that's what a fern, branch looks like. I'll follow you into the depths of CG hell. I appreciate that. It's good to know I've got people that will do that with me. CG hell, it's very real. Don't let anyone tell you it's not. Okay, so the fern structure. How about we look up a fern plant before I go on with this? Tropical fern. So yeah, you can see that it has these broad leaves, but what's different about the palm compared to the fern is that the fern has really, really thin, distinct like branches coming off, leaves coming off of that branch. So I want to mimic like this sort of structure where there's a bigger gap in between. Yeah, spiky. Maybe that is the case. I swear I've done that before. Like my usual process is to make them real, but yeah, I need to look into and troubleshoot what was going on there. Certainly. Yeah, so this kind of fern leaf too, this is what I'm going to be going after. Yeah, so, but it's the same structure overall. That's actually beautiful. That's a great example. I'll leave that one open. And so, well, I guess let's talk about the structure. It's nothing new compared to the palm tree, but, you know, like duplicate it in a circle, have different layers where some are pointed more up, and then gradually they start angling downward. You'll see what I'm talking about. All right, so we've got our fern leaves. I'm going to scale them down. Maybe let's put them all in the center. And then Control A to apply the location. That will also just put the origin at the very center. And since that's where our leaves are, this is how I want it. So we'll scale down, Shift D, duplicate, and start to create this fern plant. We won't have any of these like rotated quite as extreme as that. CG hell is always pixelated. There are no denoisers. Caustics are turned on, and you see everything at the blistering pace of 1 frame per hour. All those GPUs get pretty hot too. That is a brilliant description of CG hell. That's pretty good. We're gonna remember that one. That's really kudos. Well said. All right, so I'm just continuing to duplicate these around, and very similar to the palm tree. Oh, I didn't apply Control A, apply the location on all of them. This one's maybe a bit large. But as I go up each level, and by level I mean, you know, level 1 is at the bottom, level 2 is above that, and then level 3 is going to be in the middle. So like each level I'm going to look from above and, you know, fill in the empty space, right? So I'm not going to put them directly over top of each other, but fill in that empty space. And also keeping in mind to make this thing imperfect, not symmetrical. Embrace the asymmetry. That is going to be important. Now we're on to level 3, really. And yeah, I think that's going to be a good fern. Let's see what it looks like in look dev mode. Very cool. I mean, you could leave it like this, but I want it to be different ultimately than the palm. I don't want it to look like it's been harvested from the palm. So let's save this file first. It's going to go into its own folder, Fern. And the version kind of thing. I'm trying to stick to this because it does create a very organized file structure, and I can always find stuff. Because as the project gets more complex, if you don't stay on top of that organization, you're gonna lose files. You're not gonna remember where stuff is saved, even when you work by yourself sometimes. So within the version folder, I'm going to call this Fern01. Yeah, excellent. And then I can focus on just one of these, and I'm ready to paint. So here's my dilemma that I'm thinking about. I'm using the palm tree. Oh, here's something I could do. Here's my options. Here's what's going through my head. I can duplicate this texture and make it specific to ferns. However, in the UV image editor, if I load up that texture, we're wasting all this other information in the texture. So I think what's best is I just start from scratch. I change the UVs, I rearrange them, and maximize the usage of the texture space. Yeah, so that's what I'll do. I won't just directly change the existing palm tree texture. All right, so let's see. How am I going to do this? I'm going to go back to my typical texture painting setup where I have a shader editor in the bottom, and then I'm going to change this and call it Fern Color. And I'm going to go to the image, and I'm going to change the source to be generated. All right, that's going to wipe out all that information. I'll make it a greenish color to correspond to our fern, and then image save as. I guess I don't quite need to save it yet. I'll go ahead and do that. Go to my global texture directory, and this is going to be Fern Color with an alpha channel, because we're going to do the same thing with the palm tree. Use that alpha channel and tab into edit mode. Now on this object, let's optimize our UVs. With a long, thin structure like this, scaling it up and going from corner to corner is typically the most optimal position for that. There is going to be wasted space, but not as much. So, oh well. That's going to be a little more optimal. I think 1024 is probably going to be fine for this texture. So yeah, I should be able to change. I thought I'd be able to change that. Maybe not. Oh, because I saved it. Yep, 1024. There we go. Image, let's replace what we just saved, Fern Color. Awesome. Now we can start to paint a gradient. This is the same process as the palm tree. So I'm going to grab my pen tablet, go to texture paint mode. We're going to use the gradient tool, which is in the fill brush, and enable that gradient and choose a darker green. Maybe select the existing green, saturate it a bit, and then a brighter green. All right, let's right, so the top toolbar up here, which is what I like to use, is missing by default. We will show the tool settings and change our mix type to, oh yeah, I want mix. So why is it like bright like that? I didn't change my flags. That must be why. So the gradient color flags are different from your color palette. I get those confused, obviously. So I'm just going to copy and paste those. There we go. Let's look at a fern. I might take it more towards a yellowish direction, depending on the reference here. Yeah, like a brighter color, somewhere in between yellow and green. Oh, Omar, if you whistle Seven Nation Army, will you get pulled from YouTube? I mean, if you caught it that it was Seven Nation Army, that would be astounding if it did. I didn't think it was that clear. That's funny. If it does, I guess I'll have to mute that. That's pretty funny. I mean, the Shazam app doesn't doesn't identify, the Shazam app doesn't identify whistling. It has to be the actual track. So I would assume not. Oh yeah, I wanted to make this more of a yellow color. I think that's going to be good for now. Yikes, we've got a little bit of an artifact here. What is that from? Maybe the normal fall off, maybe occlude and cull. Oh, also my strength is not all the way up, and I was using pressure sensitivity. There we go. It's still doing that. What is that? Why would it do that? That is annoying. What is my bleed value set to? Oh, I want it at 10. Does anyone? Oh, okay. The bleed value. Why did that adjust it? I don't know. For some reason that fixed it. Okay. I can save my texture and now move on to painting the fern pattern of the leaves. So the mix type needs to be set. First, go to the brush, mix type to erase alpha. White color is going to be fine. Strength up to 1. Oh, and the material needs to be set up to accept. Oh, okay, it seems to be. Huh, at some point I must have eliminated. No, there's the alpha texture. I don't know why it's acting like this. Oh, I'm in solid mode. I got to go to look depth mode. There we go. Now it's cutting out properly. Okay. All right, so we are going to use the smooth stroke. And I'm just going to drag these out. Well, I need to find a good pattern for it. Let me see. I'm going to go look at my Google reference. So the leaves kind of, there's a taper to them, right? They're small at the base. They're small at the base. They kind of grow outward, and you can't see that at all. Small at the base, they grow outward, and then come back to being thin at the end. How could I do that efficiently? How could I do that efficiently? And is it worth it? If I change the radius, perhaps, of my brush, I can control that. I need it to be the opposite. I need to go hard first, then lighten up, and then go hard at the end. Maybe I'm just making this unnecessarily difficult. I think I'm just making it unnecessarily difficult. We'll just go like this. Could use this stencil to paint out the alpha. I could. I just didn't want to bother setting it up, if I'm honest. A little bit lazy. Let me save the image texture as it is. I mean, I think that'll be okay. I think it'll be close enough to what I want. I mean, I guess I could also just make 2 strokes a piece. You know, do one like this, and then one like that. But now my gap is getting pretty large. Press 1 in the chat if you think this is good enough, or if you think, come on, Kent, you got to do better than that. So yeah, press 1 if you think it's good enough, 2 if you think you got to do better than that. I'm getting a pattern down here. It's coming along. Ooh, Tobles is disappointed. I kind of am too. I feel like the gap's too big. I'm going to run with it because we only have 20 minutes left. I'm going to run with it and see. I can always come back and redo it. But right now, I want to see. I think once we put the texture detail in the shader, it might be fine. It might be respectable in quality. That looks like mostly ones. Nice and stylized. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Matthew, I hope you're doing well. Oh, I left a big gap. That's fine. That's going to be fine. Let's see what it looks like with everything else. Oh yeah, these don't have the same UVs. Let's copy them. Control L. Transfer UV maps. Tab into edit mode to update. That's going to be fine, people. I think that's going to be okay. But I need to adjust the orientation of the procedural, pattern. Yeah, I think that actually turned out way better than I was expecting. Let's go to shading, the shading workspace. Also save the image texture while I'm at it. Image save. Yeah, that turned out better than I thought. So I need to change the orientation here. Well, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to match up with some, but not with others. That's all right. Stylized. It can be simple. It can be approximated. We're cool with that. All right, that went a lot faster than I thought. Go figure. This is the one thing I haven't rehearsed whatsoever. Ambient occlusion has that look on it. Very nice. I think that passes as a fern. So now we've got I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. I think I've done everything I wanted to. Maybe I'll go troubleshoot that second umbrella tree issue. Try and figure that out. I can save the file and actually save this. Oh, do I want a couple versions? Yeah, I suppose I should make another version of this. Should I though? Does it look different from 3 different angles? Let's test it. How different does it look from 3 angles? All right, I'm going to press 1 here. This is my front orthographic, 3 here. And then Control 3, and then hit 4 a couple times. We might be able to get away with just this one fern. I'll say that yes, we should be able to get away with it. Again, I can always create new ones if I want later. Oops. But it suffices my rule right now. Does it look as good? Does it at least look different from 3 angles? All right. We'll save that. Also save it as the final fern file. All right, we've built up a small library so far. Palm tree, umbrella tree, fern, bush, And I do want that other type of bush. So I'm going to, for the rest of the stream, I'm just going to troubleshoot if we can get that other, the leaves to show up. Palm tree, no, umbrella tree 01. Huh, and on second look, maybe it was a mistake to delete that segment. I'll leave it, and then if we notice it in the render, in the final render, then I'll address it. But why in the world? All right, here's what I can do. Let me save let me save a new version and delete all of this. All right, let's try again. Shift A. Let's get rid of the background. Shift A. Curve. Sapling generator. Load preset. Umbrella tree number 2. Where is this thing? Why is it over there? Okay. I don't think I ever noticed that the shading workspace. Okay, this is leaves and this is circle. I'm confused at what was the original one. I think this must have been my original one. Anyway. Yeah, the shading workspace turns off the grid by default. That's kind of nice. So let's add that sapling tree gen. Oh yeah, make the rock. That's something I could also do. Let's change it up. Trees are lame. Let's do a rock. Let's do a rock. I'll figure that junk out on my own. I like Miranda's suggestion. New, general, discard changes. Yes. Trees are lame. Lame. I'm going to Control 3 on the default cube. We're using the default cube. Can you believe it? And I'm going to apply. I'm going to convert it. Object convert to mesh. Now, the rock, I should only need one because it can look very different from other angles. I'm going to design it that way. That escalated quickly. Sometimes it's fun just to shift gears and do something else. And knocking out the rock, which would mean next week we can definitely start populating the island scene itself. And that, I'm excited to get there. Object, what was I doing? I converted it already, I believe. Yeah, so this means I've got enough geometry to start sculpting with dynamic topology. Sculpt mode. Oh yeah, my toolbar is hidden. Header, show tool settings, enable dynamic topology. I do find it kind of annoying that they come with default UV maps, which I don't know, when do you ever use the default UV maps of the primitives? Anyway, sculpt mode, enable dynamic topology without an error, and detail size, let's go to 7. Subdivide collapse is going to be good. All right. First things first, I'm going to grab my snake hook brush and just pull out a rock-like shape. All right, it's basically going to be a blob. I do not want symmetry. No symmetry. Symmetry is the killer of believability. All right, so we're just going to make this blob. And the rock is, I'm going to be able to use it from any angle. Rotate it upside down, scale it, you know, smash it like a pancake it. Not completely, but like a little bit. And then, yeah, so I'm going to switch over to the clay strips. And this is going to be, it should be my main brush for achieving this kind of shape. This rock is going to be fun. Just trying to create some ridges and some rocky structure. Alan, hello. You're excited? I'm excited. Good to see you. I assume this is your first one then. Welcome to the stream. welcome to the stream, Alan. Yeah, so I'm using the clay strips brush to like build up somewhat, like the clay strips is good because it has these sort of hard edges. But then once we, I want to use the scrape brush. The scrape peaks brush. So this used to be a trick in 2.7. And it's changed a little bit. What is it? So the scrape brush, I think I can turn on original normal. Is that the only thing? Yeah. So the original normal, now we can start to create some planar faces, some planar facets, really. I'm going to switch to matcap. Yeah, we're going to use mocap to model our rock today. Unconventional technique. Got my crease brush out now. I am going to start cutting in some crevices. This is looking nothing like a rock so far, but it'll get there. I'm confident. I think I need to just focus on getting rid of the blobbiness. So maybe spending time faceting out our surface. How is my tongue behavior today? Has it been typical and a lot of it, or has it been controlled today? It was revealed to me last stream that I play a lot with my tongue when I'm concentrating. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't think I want to be known as that. I mean, Michael Jordan was, right? So maybe it's a good thing. Hadn't even noticed. Maybe you're all starting to do it like me as you concentrate, and it's blending in and camouflaging. I'm trying not to make suggestive jokes. I understand the temptation. All right, is this looking anything like a rock? I think we're slowly getting there. Part of the reason why I think it's going slow is I'm not looking at any reference. I had somebody on YouTube kind of call me out for using reference all the time, which I took as more of a compliment because when I don't use reference, I end up bumbling around and it kind of looks like what I'm after, but kind of not. Like in a dream, you know, in the dream it's so vivid. In my head, a rock is so vivid. But unless I have the reference to like confirm the vision in my head, it ends up taking longer to get there, or maybe never really looking like what I'm after. So if I was doing this properly, I would have sprung for some reference. But alas, it's the end of the stream and I'm just trying to wing it. Yeah, I need to avoid the comments a little more. It used to really, really bother me. But I think I've gotten better over time. But that is a good rule to live by. Avoid the comments. All right, let me flip it over because I've spent most of the time in one orientation, but now I'm going to look at the other to make sure that it looks decent. All right, we got like 6 minutes. I think I can basically finish this in 6 minutes. I think it's looking like a stylized rock. Stylized enough. Ugh, got away from me there. I think that's going to be all right. Maybe bring this kind of crack around a little further. Ooh, do we make them connect? Ugh, crazy. I think that's good. I think it will suffice. All right, so for the model itself, this is something I like to do with rocks especially. I'm going to jump over to the Decimate Modifier. Let's go down to a ratio of like 0.1, pretty low. Maybe 0.05. All right, so it's pretty optimal. And then I'm going to apply that. All right, so the Decimate Modifier, decreases the amount of geometry, but does its best to maintain the shape. So I've got the essential forms here, and then with this kind of ugly triangulated mesh, if I add a subsurf modifier, it ends up looking more stonish. It's pretty cool because it's, like I'm actually using to my advantage the pinching and stuff that comes from the triangles being smoothed, and it actually ends up looking pretty cool. So yeah, I like that technique for creating these types of rocks. I'm missing all kinds of interesting conversation, I feel like, but no questions. So the next step, I'm going to get the vertex color information. Have I done that yet? I'm recording another course that uses this. I use it on my other project. I kind of forget, like, have I talked about this or not? I don't think so. This might be a new-ish technique, but I did do it in the game asset rock course. All right, so what I'm going to do is I need to unwrap this, and it's not going to matter that much since it's kind of a round shape. I'm just going to basically cut it in half as a seam. Really quick and dirty. Wait, do I even need this at all? I might not need UVs at all. Let's first jump to Control Tab, Vertex Paint, and then Dirty Vertex Colors, and the Paint menu, Dirty Vertex Colors. I think I can just use this. All right, this is brilliant for giving us like darkness in the crevices and highlights on the edges. That's what the Dirty Vertex Color tool does. And yeah, you can kind of tell it already looks more like a rock, and we can just plug this into the material and use it as is. All right, so back to object mode. Let's move to the shading workspace. Don't need any textures or any UV maps. All right, we've got, for some reason it has a material. I'm going to call it rock. Yeah, that's what I'm calling it. And then input, vertex colors, the color data. Plug that in by itself. Very nice. Sort of highlights the edges a little bit and then darkens that crevice. That's going to be great. That's going to be great. And then from here we can add it into a converter color ramp. Make the dark color, like a little bit lighter of a brown. Light color, also a brown. Actually, maybe towards a blue. There's so many ways you can do this. I'll keep it towards brownish, mostly desaturated. And then, I can use. Let me try something. I'm gonna try this color texture Voronoi. I don't know if it'll work. Bear with me. Question from number 9: does Dirty Vertex Colors take into account subdivision modifiers? It does not. So that is the Dirty Vertex information based on the low res mesh. So if I apply this and then go back to Dirty Vertex Colors, let's get rid of the material. I think I can, yeah, paint. So you can hit Shift K, and that is right here, it's set vertex color. And if we unhide the tool settings, you can see that the color is white. So hit Shift K to just, whitewash it basically. And then paint dirty vertex colors. Note that it does look quite different. Oh, and that looks better. Since it looks better, I'm inclined to have UVs. I don't want this. I don't want the high-res mesh. That's too high, unnecessarily high. But I don't want to lay out UVs necessarily. That's a better result. I need to use the better result. How many tries is it? Am I going to... 20,000? It's a little high, but maybe we won't use that many rocks. Save, save, save. Thank you. Save as Fern Rock. Version. Rock 01. It's 4 o'clock. That's 2 hours. So we're not done with the rock, but I might stop it here. Make a better decision. Think it over. Hopefully make a better decision about. Basically, the only extra work that needs to be added here is I can do the quick and dirty, ugly way and leave it at 20,000 polys for a rock, or lay out the UVs for this other rock and bake that vertex data to the UVs, and then therefore have another texture into the texture maps. I'll think it over. Probably the best decision is to lay out UVs and bake the information, but that looks way better, don't you think? A lot of cool detail concentrated on the edges and stuff. So I'm going to save this and we're going to call it a day. Next week, I expect to start building out some of the environment, blocking it out, creating a basic ocean, placing simple versions of stuff, and then importing trees, linking trees rather, and it'll inform like the workflow from there. If we need to make more trees, if we're okay with what we have. So yeah, we'll start building that out next week. Awesome. So thank you guys for being here. Always a pleasure, always fun. I will see you next week. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Goodbye.